Welcome to the Emo Social Club podcast, your home for music news and interviews. I am Lizzie, and today I'm talking with Cody from Hinder. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And this is basically on the heels of a new single that you guys have coming out on March 28th called Bring Me Back to Life. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this song is it's a really exciting song for us. You know, we had written an entire album over the pandemic and finished it in 2021, and then just kind of decided that, I don't know, it wasn't right. You know what I mean? We felt like it wasn't genuine. Like we were trying to recreate the vibe of the first album, and it just didn't feel like us at the moment. So we shelved that entire album and kind of had decided that we weren't going to do any new music. You know, we were kind of thinking that maybe just the fans want to just come to the shows, hear all the old songs, and that's what we'll do. And Marshall and I were sitting around in the studio and decided one day that we were going to try to write a song, and we couldn't think of anything, you know, and we were just super uninspired. And he's like, why don't we just write a song about that? You know? And so we did. So we wrote Bring Me Back to Life, and that's kind of the jumping off point for the entire album. It just kind of, I don't know, did exactly that. It brought us back to life and made us remember that we actually know how to write songs, and we could do it again. So we jumped in, and a few months later we had an album.
I think that's really reminiscent of like what you were just kind of saying. You didn't want to kind of do the same thing you were trying to do back in the early 2000s, because listening to this song, it sounds very more pop rocky and a little bit more of that more modern day, like hard active rock type of sound that we've been hearing on the radio the last few years. So I think it's also kind of staying in the same vein of like what is also current and modern in popular rock music too, for right now, for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, for us, we've always kind of, I don't know, we've kind of walked that line. You know, a lot of people don't realize, I mean, yes, we are a rock band, but we've actually never had a number one rock song. But we have had a number one at Top 40. And so most of our biggest songs throughout our entire career, they've lived on pop radio. And I mean, I know that pop is very different now than it was back then. Back then you could hear Nickelback and Three Doors Down and Shinedown and us and, you know, a handful of other rock bands on Top 40 radio. So, you know, for us, we've always liked to kind of, like I said, walk that line and do a little bit of everything. You know, we don't want to be known for just one thing, and it's not what we enjoy. You know, we enjoy being able to kind of just write the songs that we want to write and produce the music we want to produce.
I think that's really refreshing, especially just because you're just kind of sticking true to yourself instead of really trying to go in this like more conformist route that sometimes we see some artists do to kind of stick with the game. So I think maybe when this LP comes out, we can probably hear maybe a bit of variety potentially from Hinder when it comes to your sound.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of variety. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty all over the place. I mean, you know, we have those heavy rock songs, those more modern rock songs, and then we have songs that are, you know, like Bring Me Back to Life. You know, it kind of has that, like, I don't know, a little bit of a pop edge to it. And then we have songs that are kind of pop punk, you know, things we've never done before. So yeah, it's exciting. And I think that, you know, one thing that we just wanted to make sure of is that the songwriting from start to finish was as strong as it could possibly be, and that was cohesive. And then we kind of like to just produce the songs for what they're supposed to be. We like to do what's best for the song, not just what people think that Hinder is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want to necessarily be pigeonholed per se as this kind of divorce rock dad genre, which I think is funny. And I wonder what you think about that kind of user made up type of terminology to describe not only obviously Hinder, but also like 3 Days Grace and Breaky Benjamin and a myriad of other bands as well, but that you are capable to do more and break out of that box?
Yeah, I mean, we're embracing it. You know, we made a shirt that's like, it's got it says Hinder across the front, but it's in that like metal logo that you can't read.
Yeah.
You know, that looks like a thorn bush. And then on the back, it says "Divorced Dad Rock" in giant letters. Takes up the whole back of the shirt.
That's pretty hard. I kind of need that.
Yeah, we'll see if we can send you one.
There we go. Well, listen, you just came off of a tour as well with Saliva, and we also know you're playing a couple of big festivals too. If you want to talk a little bit about that, because this is Louder Than Life, this is Aftershock, very big type of hard and active rock and metalcore festivals that Hinder is going to be gracing the stage upon this year.
Yeah, those are always fun. You know, we didn't get on those festivals for several years for whatever reason, and you know, now that we're back and a little more active and you know, taking songs to radio again and pushing new music, you know, we're getting all the big festivals. Rocklahoma is another one. We've only done that one time in our entire career, which is wild. That's you know, in our home state, but we're on that one this year. And like you mentioned, you know, Louder Than Life, Aftershock. It's always good to get out there and see other bands, especially this time. You know, we're playing on the stage with one of our like our band best friends, I guess, in Rev Theory. They're making a comeback and playing some shows, and that's super exciting for us. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
No, that's awesome. Now, the next thing we need to do is get you here in Chicago on a festival or just playing a show in general. I think that's going to have to be our next step here.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's work on it.
There we go. Well, speaking of some of your band besties that you're kind of getting back together with in some ways by being on this fest, do you have any type of newer acts that really stick out to you that are either in this genre or maybe outside of this hard rock genre?
Yeah, there's a band that I'm really into called Lakeview. That's kind of like, I don't know, I guess it's a little more like metal country.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just, you know, it kind of scratches that itch for me where it's like, it sounds heavy. It's got the great, you know, the big riffs and the monster drums, but from a songwriting standpoint, it's very country. You know, the songs are very well written. Lyrically, it's very simple. It's very relatable, but also clever. You know, those guys have managed to kind of do it all, check all the boxes. So, and a bonus is they're playing Lips of an Angel live. So they're covering that live during their show. So, I mean, for me, how cool is that? You know, one of my favorite new bands out there covering our song. That's pretty cool.
I'm pretty sure they're also pretty stoked. Like, oh my God, Hinder, like the Hinder also is aware that we're doing this and is super into it.
I mean, I don't know about all that, but it's pretty cool for me. I'll say that.
No, that's awesome. And you actually bring up something really interesting as well, because sonically speaking, if we look at a lot of these divorced dad, butt rock type of songs that we have been hearing for 20 plus years at this point, and even now we still hear a lot of similarities between these kind of country riffs blending together, get together with like hard and active rock as well. And we're still seeing that in such a huge popularity standpoint when it comes to like Hardy and Jelly Roll as well, kind of taking over the scene. How do you feel about if we were to say that country has influenced Hinder and or just the hard and active rock scene in that way, even though I know that's controversial with a lot of people? You know,
I don't really think that it is controversial amongst like songwriters, you know, because, you know, I think that most rock writers that I know love country music. Because, you know, like I said, they have all those hooks, you know, it's very structured in that way that they have the hooks, but they also have, you know, the lyrical content. It just grabs people, you know, it's always a story that people can relate to. You know, it's not always about my truck and my dog or whatever the jokes always are. Right. There's some really great songwriters out in Nashville, and I mean everywhere, not just Nashville, but those guys are writing great songs, man. So I'll say like Chad from Nickelback, for example. He's been running around the Nashville scene for years. Making those songwriter rounds, just because that's where the best writers in the world are, in my opinion.
I can see that, especially just understanding how like the country, like rock, like the country radio circuit. I used to work in corporate radio, knowing how that all kind of operates. It's such like a different world. So if you're tapping in some of the best, then you're going to end up with a really good product at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been doing it for years. I mean, we did our third record. The majority of that album was written in Nashville. And I mean, it was a really, really cool experience for me going out and doing it that way, because I get to write with some of my favorite songwriters of all time. And, just getting to watch some of those guys work, being in the same room with them, it's, I don't know. It was definitely humbling. Those guys can do it, and they can do it fast. So you got to be on top of your game whenever you're out there doing it.
That's so fascinating. It's just kind of like, I would just think it's a writer's roundtable, but maybe it's just kind of like who gets it done the fastest and who can make the best song is kind of what I'm imagining, like almost like a game show type of thing, even though it's definitely not that, but that would kind of be the vibe. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. They have all these different like writing or publishing houses that they belong to, and they'll either set them up within the company with different writers, or they'll send them, across town to write with some people in some other companies or whatever. But it's a big circle, and everybody knows everybody. They've all been doing it for such a long time. It's like I said, it's very structured and very cool. It's very efficient.
Oh, we love to hear that, because then things get done.
Absolutely.
Now, also thinking about, we're talking about lyricism, and when we look at this kind of music that you have been putting out for years, we obviously hear a lot of things that are sad, depressing, maybe concerning, reassuring, and it's a lot of things that are really synonymous with some of this like emo and pop punk culture to an extent. But we have seen that scene really embrace this divorced dad rock adjacent music. And what could you say to that? Why that they would want to kind of keep bringing you guys into the fold, whereas in the past it used to be way more rigid and who was allowed into this cool kid emo scene?
I think it's because I assume, I don't really know, but we're pretty transparent, in our writing. We try to put it all out there. We're not concerned with being, I don't know, like the bro rock band. We're not just trying to be out there, writing the heaviest riffs and sounding as tough as we can possibly sound. We're just writing songs that are honest, and songs that tell a story, and songs that we hope people can relate to. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think that we can also see that a lot within emo music and pop punk, even though some of it is that my girlfriend broke up with me, I'm so upset, at like the most baseline level. But if we're looking at adjacently as well, Hinder and these other acts as well, we're able to see that we're talking about it just a little bit elevated, a little bit more mature in some ways as well, of kind of going a little bit deeper into those emotional feelings.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say that anything is mature about us, but we're trying. We're here.
Listen, ideally with this forthcoming album, you're going to be all over the place. So you could showcase your longevity, your timeline with the sound that you're going to be putting out here.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned the longevity and the timeline. I guess that part about us is mature. we're getting up there, I guess. So yeah, that's never fun, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're hoping. We, like I said, we're extremely proud of this album from front to back from a songwriting standpoint. We think it's probably, in my opinion, I think it's the strongest thing we've ever done. So, and I know people always say that about their new album, but doing it as long as we've been doing it, I feel pretty confident that people are gonna recognize it for that. For the strength in the songwriting. I'm very proud of it.
No, that's fantastic to hear. And especially again, as we've already like kind of just covered, it's something that is what you guys wanted to do. And it's kind of just saying, screw it. No matter what anybody says, we're not going to just replicate things over and over again just to satisfy the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, I think that's very important. I think people they can tell when it's not honest and when it's not genuine. If you're trying to recreate something because you think other people want to hear it, I don't think that's going to work. People can see right through it, I think.
Yeah, and the nostalgia core train has started to kind of lose its steam a little bit, I will say, over the last probably 5 years in this kind of like music genre. So it's very refreshing to see some of these older acts that we've known and loved for so long actually start to get their feet wet again with something new and fresh.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, it's there are a lot of those bands I grew up listening to, especially through high school and college before we really took off and got out there. So for me, it's really cool to see all these bands coming back out and touring again and putting out new music. I don't know, they're exciting times. It's always cool to see your favorite musicians and bands out there doing it again.
Yeah. And then we have to obviously talk about the elephant in the room, which is 20 years of Lips of an Angel, which is kind of crazy to say. Now,
yeah,
we know that this album that's being released is basically to celebrate that 20 years. But what does that feel for you? How do you feel about having this huge success of a single and looking back at it 20 years later?
I don't know. It's crazy. Like, that's 20 years is a long time to be doing anything, and I know we've been out there for a long time, but I don't feel that old, you know what I mean? So, it's wild to think about. I mean, we were extremely young when that song came out and when that album came out, and to think about, just the life that we've lived and that entire album and particularly Lips of an Angel, thinking about, how long that song has been out and, all the things that it's done for us. It's paid for homes. It's paid for everything, for 20 years. That's crazy to think about. I mean, yeah, we've been out touring and we've had some successful tours. And so we've been able to make money that way. But, a lot of that is from the success of that first album. So, I mean, it says a lot about the songs.
No, that's awesome. I think that is just crazy and insane that you guys have been able to. This has been like the rock and roll dream pretty much for a lot of people to be able to be so successful, to maintain your band for all these years, to be able to make money from it as well. After that, it used to kind of be such like a big taboo thing for a little bit. And now it's just much more widely accepted and we're rooting on for our homies to get to that next level. So I think also kind of comparing it from early 2000s to now, the structure of that has been nice to see to change while also kind of being there to support everybody at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important. It's important to support everybody else out there. I mean, we're all out here trying to do the same thing. Right. So, the stronger the connections and relationships that you can make and, help other people, I think it comes back.
Yeah. Now, I have one more question for you before we wrap up for today. And I just want to know, what makes Hinder so emo?
Man. I mean, just that, honestly, because we are, you can hear it in the songs, you know what I mean? Like, we're not afraid to throw it out there and show that emo side. And like I said, we're not out there trying to be tough. We're just out there trying to write great songs that people can relate to. Great songs that matter to people.
I love that. Yeah. Just something that's meaningful at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, Cody, appreciate you coming and chatting with us today. If you want to throw out where everybody can keep up to date with Hinder and yourself, so we know when you're coming to town and we can go and get the best shirt I have ever heard to be in existence.
Yeah, hindermusic.com is the website. You can check out all the tour dates there, or Instagram is also Hinder Music, and Facebook, all the places. We're super easy to find. We're out there. So.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and we appreciate it, and hopefully we see you in Chicago soon.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you so much.